But good morning. What an honor it is to get to talk to you during this series, Inside Out. Being Michael's wife does have its perks sometimes. He asked me what I would like to speak on, like which emotion I would want to speak on, and I told him joy, which may seem like to you guys that it's an easy one. He thinks I got the easy one. Nope. Okay? I told him, I don't think it is, because I think we as humans tend to go to the other ones easier, and we could talk a whole lot about the other ones, right? And so I think joy is a harder one, and for me, actually, in some seasons of my life, I've actually lived more in fear, anxiety, and disgust. Those are the top three ones that I probably would go to in hard seasons in my life. A lot of seasons in my life. And joy has been a hard one for me, if I'm honest. Something that I needed to be challenged more in, so I'm like, I'm going to speak on it. And so I'm here this morning. I asked God to start doing a work in me like never before I even got on this platform. And let me explain that, you see, as one that always lived and can still be pulled into the direction of anxiety, disgust, and fear, I had to learn how to tap into joy. And if I don't take a hold of that and those emotions that can so easily entangle me, if I don't take a hold of those and take a hold of and take captive those things that go on in my mind, I can go down very dangerous paths. In Romans 12:2, it says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn and know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. You see, I have to change the way I think. I have to really think about what I'm thinking about, because thoughts lead to feelings. And feelings lead to action. So I need to be very, very intentional as someone that tends to go in that direction so easily. As many of you know, we just took a family trip to Florida. Not just a family trip to Florida, but Walt Disney World. We celebrated 20 years married with our favorite people, which are our kids. And we celebrated with them. They are getting older, and we wanted this to just be the five of us before it's not just the five of us as they move into their late teen and adult years. And so we wanted this to be a special 20-year anniversary with just us. But we went to Walt Disney World in June. And here's the thing. Walt Disney World in June is very hot. It's very humid. It's very stormy, sweaty, people-y. Rain soaking you head to toe within 1.5 minutes. And the old me would dread Walt Disney World in June. I would dread it. I don't like being sweaty unless I'm working out. I was sweating in worship this morning, and I hate it. I'm like glowing, and it's not dewy, it's sweaty. And I don't like to sweat unless I'm working out. And I don't want to get wet in a Florida storm because I don't want to walk around in my wet clothes all day. I don't want to wash my hair every day. Dry shampoo is my jam, ladies, right? But the new me, the one that realizes that this time with my kids is priceless these days. I loved it, and I was here for it. But here's what I learned at Walt Disney World in June. No one cares. No one cares. It's magical, all of it. Everyone's sweaty and gross, but everyone's saying, have a magical day. It's okay. Everyone's sweaty. Everyone's gross. Everyone's soaked. Grab a poncho, or don't. We don't do ponchos. He won't pay for them. We don't do ponchos. But we make the memory and we take the selfie, and I'm putting the selfie up this morning. That is day one in Epcot. But it was pure joy, and it was magical. It was a magical day. And now, you see, were there toddlers melting down everywhere? Yes. Were there teens bickering? Yes. Including our own? Yes. Were there long lines? Yes. But no one cares. You know, joy is not circumstantial. It was in the memories being made. The joy in me that day was not based on the circumstances there. I was just having a good time with my family. You see, the joy was not circumstantial. It was the experience. And the Lord convicted me of this, and I believe He wants to say it to all of us today, that many times we have experienced, or I have experienced God and the things of Him, yet we live by our circumstances and not the Spirit of God that we have experienced. And the lack of fruit shows. Did you know that the fruits of the Spirit, joy being one of them, is not a personality type? In Galatians 5:22 through 23, it says, "But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control." You see, if you've been in Riverside 101, I have challenged you with this, that we rely so much. We give out personality tests in Riverside 101. We want to see what you're about, but I tell you that these personality tests or these numbers, we make excuses saying, well, this is who I am, take it or leave it. I'm a 6, I'm emotional. And we use it as an excuse, saying this is who I am. And I know we're all about transparency and vulnerability around here, but we're also about sanctification, which means not allowing ourselves to stay where we are. It's a call to grow, and it's a call to be mature, and it's a call to be set apart. We are called to move and not stay in it. The fruits of the Spirit are not a personality type. We're all called to it. You know, the trip to Disney in June will test every fruit of the Spirit. Glory to God. But just the Florida traffic alone can make me lose my testimony. Anxiety, we're talking about that later, okay? But I just hate it. But I felt myself convicted of this on this trip more than ever. On this trip, there's family. Our family like to joke around. We're a very sarcastic family. And the family liked to make little comments and like to make fun of me a little bit sometimes. And whether it's in good fun or not, I start to pull my emotions out. And I would, in the past, well, I'm still working on it. In the past, I would live in these hurt feelings. Like I'd find myself slip into that pity party. Well, I just won't say anything. I'm just not going to talk. But I had to pull myself away from these silent treatments pretty much the whole trip with teenagers. But this is a trip that we won't take again too soon. So I had to be joyful. I had to ride those rides. I had to enjoy the moments, because just like that, it can be gone. Now, let's be real. It's family vacay. So, yes, we had some moments of heated fellowship. But I'm proud to say that we didn't stay there long. We actually joked about it afterwards. We're still joking about some of the moments. But joy is different from happiness. Joy is steady. It's a fruit. It's something we tend to. It's something we check in on. And so as we look at the life of Jesus, and yes, he liked to have a good time. His first miracle was at a wedding. We're going to talk about it. He loved to have dinner with friends. He invited himself over to people's houses all the time. But as I look at his life, I ask the question, what can we learn about joy from Jesus? So let's look at it. He wasn't this outwardly joyous person that we see them explain in the Bible, but he was a steady joy. So what can we learn from him? One of the most outwardly joyous occasions that I just talked about was Jesus at the wedding in Cana. This was his very first miracle that was recorded. So we're going to take a look at that in John 2, 1 through 12. It says, the next day, there was a wedding celebration in the village of Cana in Galilee, and Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the celebration. The wine supply ran out during the festivities, so Jesus' mother told him, they have no more wine. Jesus said, dear woman, that's not our problem. My time has not come yet. But his mother told the servants, do whatever he tells you. Standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for Jewish ceremonial washing. Each could hold 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus told the servants, fill the jars with water. When the jars had been filled, he said, now dip some out and take it to the master of ceremonies. So the servants followed his instructions. When the master of ceremonies tasted the water that was now wine, not knowing where it had come from, though of course the servants knew, he called the bridegroom over and he said, a host always serves the best wine first. He said, and then when everyone has had a lot to drink, you bring out the less expensive, less good wine. But you have kept the best until now. The miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After the wedding, he went to Capernaum for a few days with his mother and his brothers and disciples. So this leads to the first thing we see about the joy of Jesus, I believe, and that is Jesus' joy is satisfying. Jesus' joy is satisfying. You see, here we have a problem at the wedding. We haven't even got to the cha-cha slide and the wine has ran out. We got a problem. And Jesus' mom is over here like, oh, no worries, Jesus got it. And he's like, not really the time, Mom. It's not time for me to reveal myself yet, but okay. And she tells him, do whatever he asks. And they not only have good wine, but they have real good wine. The best of the best. We're going to come back to that. Some of you are so caught up in the wine thing, you can't even get past. Okay. You know, and I've talked about Disney a lot, and how great, but I kept getting nostalgic. Now, if you've seen Inside Out 2, there's a little character that comes out of a door every so often. She's a little grandma called Nostalgia. That's who I relate to the most. I kept saying the whole time, like, you guys remember when I had to hold your legs down on the Tower of Terror? Because they would come, they were like, no, Mom, I don't remember. But I remembered a time when Ben, our youngest, was little, and we were at Universal Studios one year, and we were on like a Spider-Man 3D ride, the one where you have to wear the glasses. And you see, you have to wear the glasses to really see what's going on. You see, Ben was around 5 years old, and he was terrified, shaking, crying, but we kept saying, Ben, take off the glasses. Take off the glasses, because we knew the intensity would go down. It would just be kind of blurry. He'd just have a few little water spurts here and there. He'd be fine. It would just be blurry. So we're like, Ben, take off the glasses. It's not as cool, but take them off. It's not as intense. But how many of us do this where God says, here's what I have for you. I want to fill you with love and joy and peace and patience, but we start chasing what the world says is happiness. The next promotion, more money, the house we can't afford, the car we can't afford, relationships that kind of look good, but they're not God. The next best thing, we want more and we want more and we want more, and we chase happiness and we think it will fill us, it will satisfy us, and it just leaves us dizzy and not seeing the fullness that God really has for us and who he is. He's saying, put on the glasses, the blur will go away. It can still be scary, but I got you. See, many of us are on the ride, but we don't have the glasses on. We settle for the blurry. And it may seem like it was just jars of water, but in the hands of Jesus, let's see in verse 7, it says, Jesus told the servants, fill the jars with water. Jesus is saying, bring me what you have. You may be feeling every emotion but joy in your life right now. Bring me what you have. The pain you have right now may be unbearable. Bring me what you have. I know the unknown seems scary, but bring me what you have. He's saying, I will take those feelings and I will fill them with joy. Steady joy. A peace you can't explain. Give me what you have. These jars held 20 to 30 gallons of water. They were heavy. And Jesus is saying, I know it's heavy, but I'm about to do something that you've never seen before, so bring me what you have. It may seem like just water, but bring me what you have. Look down to verse 10. It says, a host always serves the best wine first. He said, and then everyone has had, when they've had a lot to drink, he brings out the less expensive wine. But you have kept the best until now. But you have kept the best until now. Jesus was saying, yes, because when you get a taste of the miracle of who I am, you're never going to forget this day when I revealed my glory to everyone. You'll never want to go back once you've tasted what I can give you, because what I can give you is satisfying. It's a joy that doesn't stop. It lacks nothing. And it says, when all you have is a jug of water. When all you have is a jug of water. And he's saying, give it to me. I'll turn your mourning into dancing. I'll turn the sadness into joy. I'll turn your anxiety into peace. But he says, bring me what you have and let me fill it with joy. Romans 15:13 says, I pray that God, the source of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace because you trust him. And then you will overflow with confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit. Our source of hope. He is our joy. He embodies joy. From the beginning of his birth announcement, when they said, we bring glad tidings of great joy. It talks of him with the woman at the well, where he says, I will give you living water that will satisfy. When he talks about joy in Gethsemane, the joy set before me. I'm going to do what I'm going to do because of the joy set before me. The joy of his presence will always satisfy. The good news of him is what is satisfying. It's a living water. So he's saying, bring me what you have. Bring me what you have. Jesus' joy is not only satisfying, but Jesus' joy is seen. Joy, as I said earlier, is not a personality type. It's a fruit. Does that mean we fake it? Absolutely not. You see, Jesus was always filled with joy and never faked it. Joy is present. Once we've invited Jesus into our life, he is the source of our hope and he's the source of our joy, so it is present. So if there is a seed of joy when we come to know Jesus, it's there. That means it's got to be fed. That means it's got to become a fruit. So what feeds it and what kills it? Comparison kills joy, but gratefulness feeds it. Nothing will kill your joy quicker than comparison. I know we hear it all the time, but we still do it every single day. Pastor Mike Todd once said at a conference I was at, comparison is human, but it's not holy, and our culture is consumed by it. We all do it. We scroll the gram, we scroll Facebook, and there are certain things that just trigger us, and they just pull those scabs off, and those wounds start oozing because it just gets us right where it hurts. We've done it so often. We scroll and we get that gut feeling that starts to happen that makes us feel less than. And at the time, we don't even really pinpoint it because we just keep going and we keep going and we keep going. And we are feeling this feeling, but it's touched something that stings. We want what others have, and we desire other people's lives. We want other people's ministries and jobs and kids. If my house was like that, or if I just had this, their family never goes through stuff. If I had this, or if we had that, everything would just fall into place. But it can also go the other way. It can make us superior, giving us the right, or we think, to judge, put others down, become cowards behind a computer screen. When we compare, it can kill joy. These thoughts make us doubt the call that is on our life, and will end up killing our calling if we don't fight these wrestling thoughts. It becomes a wrestling match between what God thinks about us, what we think about us, and the lies of the enemy that we believe. We start to pick up strongholds. We start to believe those lies. They start holding tight to us, and we start dragging them around, and we pick them up. We pick up the fear and the doubt and the hopelessness and the depression and the anxiety. We start to get worn out and acting like we're full of faith, where really these weights are just dragging us down, and we're faking it till we make it. And we're delaying all that he has for us. And they start to become who we are. But Matthew, it says in Matthew 11:28-30, then Jesus said, "Come to me. All of you are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and my burden is light." It's not ours to carry. His burden is light. But there's a time and there's a season for all. Ecclesiastes says, everything there is a season, a time to weep, mourn, dance. But as he takes those things, it's lighter. Sometimes we start looking like the fake fruit sitting in a basket that looks aesthetically pleasing with all the filters, instead of a thriving tree bearing fruit in every season. It's why it's literally tattooed on my arm. We can talk about that later if you have a problem. In every season. God, no matter what I'm going through, may you be seen in every season. When I don't feel like it, when I don't like it, when I don't agree with it, when I don't feel like it, that you would shine through in every season of my life. That you would be the one I trust. You see, deep joy is saying, God, I trust you in every season. In every season, I want to bear fruit. In every season, I want to be rooted and grounded in you and your joy. In every season. Psalm 1:3 says, they are like trees planted along the riverbank, bearing fruit in every season. Their leaves will never wither, and they will prosper in all they do. Comparison kills, but gratefulness is the seed planted to produce the fruit of joy. Gratefulness is the seed planted to produce the fruit of joy. It's changing the way we think. Our minds are so powerful. We've done a whole series on this. Our minds are so powerful. It's dangerous left to itself and our natural thinking. But gratitude can change our thoughts and even our brain. It is proven that gratitude and thinking on good things can actually change your brain. I was listening to a Christian neuroscientist this week that has studied thousands of brains. And he was saying that actually taking thoughts captive, as the Bible says, and thinking on what is good and what is true and what is pure and what is noble can actually release dopamine and serotonin in the brain, reducing anxiety and stress. His burden is light. His burden is light. So when we are grateful, it feeds that seed of joy. Joy begins to grow and expand in our lives so people can see it. They start to see it no matter what the reason or the season we are in. People see something different. Romans 12:2 again. Don't copy the behaviors and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is pure, whatever is good, what are you thinking about? Jesus' life exuded joy. It was his everyday life in whatever he did. And as we are learning about in this series, he experienced every emotion. But joy was always still present. Joy and sadness can coexist. And he showed us that. But he always pointed people to the joy of his presence and what was to come. He knew the end of the story. We don't always know the end of the story, but he knows the end of the story. So Jesus' joy is seen in Luke 19:1-10. It says, Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town. There was a man there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. He tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd, so he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, quickly come down. I must be a guest at your home today. Told you, he invited himself to dinner all the time. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great joy, excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. Imagine that. He has gone to be a guest of a notorious sinner, he grumbled. Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, I will give half my wealth to the poor. Lord, and if I have cheated people on their taxes, I will give them back 4 times as much. Jesus responded, salvation has come to this home today. For this man has shown himself to be the true son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save that which was lost. You see, Zacchaeus was the lowest of the low, a tax collector. Yet he was curious about this man named Jesus because Jesus' fruit was seen. So he wanted to see this Jesus. He saw and heard something different about this man. A side note, people are always watching. Zacchaeus was watching from the sidelines. He had heard something. Be careful how you live. People are watching. But anyway, he pushed through the crowd, small in stature. One version said he climbed a tree to see Jesus. But there are a few things that stood out to me as I read about Zacchaeus. He tried to look at Jesus, but in one version it says he was short in stature. He couldn't see over the crowd. If you went to Sunday school, you probably heard a little song about it. Zacchaeus was a little man was he. A lot of times we get so concerned with the crowd around us that we naturally just try to blend in. We listen to the crowd. We often let the crowd block our view of the joy that is Jesus. The crowd's opinions, their thoughts, their voices, instead of pushing our way through, desperate to see what Jesus says. We pull back instead of pushing through. We believe the lies and we stay amongst the crowd instead of pushing through to get a view of the truth of what God says about us. Now, I don't want to spoil Inside Out for you, Inside Out 2, but I'm going to. If you haven't seen the movies, it's about this girl's brain, and these emotions are on a control panel, and they come in at different times, and they'll, joy will be like, oh, this is a joyous moment. I'm going to push that. And then anxiety comes in, and she's like, she needs a little anxiety. This is what it is. They are fighting for control of the panel, is what it is. But joy always seems to push through. But there's a point in the movie when the other emotions, this girl is now starting to be a teenager. So puberty, and they introduce a new emotion, anxiety. And so these new emotions banish joy away from the control board, and they banish her to the other side of her mind. But joy does everything she can to get back to help. She pushes her way through to get back. She wants to get back to Riley because she's left with anxiety, disgust, boredom, fear. She's trying to get back. Like Zacchaeus was pushing through to find this joy that was Jesus' presence. And as we read on, it says, Jesus looked up. You see, Jesus was surrounded by the crowd, yet he looked up. He looked up, and it says he called him by name. He called him by name. And this is a word for someone today, that amongst all the crowd, amongst all the noise that's going on in your head, Jesus is looking at you, and he knows you by name, and he's saying, I'm here. You may have felt like you are a nothing. You may have felt like you're a nobody, but he's saying today, I see you. I chose you. I called you. In the hurt, in the pain, in the sadness, I see you. I'm trying to push through to you. I see you. And Jesus does what he does and invites himself for dinner. Remember, Zacchaeus doesn't have a good reputation. This would be all over Facebook. Did you see where Jesus went for dinner? He was a crook, but Jesus met him where he was. Joy entered Zacchaeus' home that day. And not only entered his home, it entered his heart. What does it say in verse 6? Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy, because he had pushed through to see him. He took Jesus in with great excitement and joy because he saw him. He saw Jesus fully. He saw the fruit of his spirit with excitement and joy. And in his life that day, it was changed forever. His joy was found in Jesus. So the joy of Jesus is not only satisfying, it's not only seen, but Jesus' joy is steady yet strong. Mark 4:35-41. As evening came, Jesus said to his disciples, let's cross the river to the other side of the lake. So they took Jesus in a boat and started out, leaving the crowds behind, although other boats followed. But soon a fierce storm came up. High waves were breaking into the boat, and it began to fill with water. Jesus was sleeping at the back of the boat with his head on a cushion. The disciples woke him up, shouting, Teacher, don't you care that we're going to drown? When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind and the waves. Silence, be still. Suddenly the wind stopped, and there was a great calm. Then he asked them, Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith? The disciples were absolutely terrified. Who is this man? They asked each other. Even the wind and the waves obey. So here we are. Evening has come. After a long day of teaching, Jesus says to them, let's cross the lake. The all-knowing Jesus says, let's get in a boat. The all-knowing Jesus, knowing there's a storm about to come, says, let's get in a boat and cross to the other side. He knows the storm is about to come, but he says, let's cross. You know, the past few years of our life, they've been absolutely amazing, walking in the promise of God. But if I'm honest, they've been some of the most painful years as well. We have walked into the will of God. Him saying, yeah, let's go. 2020, let's go. We're going to do this. We're going to lead a church. Let's do this, knowing the storm of 2020 was going to come. Let's cross. And sometimes in these moments, I would look at God and say, are you sure we should be out here? Are you sure we should have gotten in that boat? And I remember losing my mind in 2020 after falling down some steps into my garbage, literal garbage, after already spraining my knee with a really, really sick kid. I remember laying there crying into the garbage with a sprained or broken foot. I didn't know at that point. And I remember crying and crying and crying with my face in garbage. I remember the breakdown of relationship with our family. I remember the breakdown of relationship with people. I remember our kids' issues. I remember family health issues, ministry pressure, being misunderstood more than you're understood, etc., etc., etc. It was all too much at times, but he had said, let's cross. But the Lord said, let's cross. The storm seemed overwhelming. But guess what? He was still in our boat. He was still in our boat. And if we lose sight of the steadiness of Jesus in our boat, something can happen. Our boat can get swamped. What do I mean by that? I'm glad you asked. Swamped on a boat means water begins to pour in over the sides and into the boat, and it can sink. The NIV version in verse 37 says, a furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so it was nearly swamped. So this is where the disciples are at. So what happens if it's swamped? It sinks. They had very valid fears. Very valid fears, and they're freaking out. You know, about a year ago, I was noticing some real bitterness inside of me. Some wounds had reopened for me, and I found myself in this bitterness, judgment, anger, and I thought it was justified because we got righteous anger. These things that started rising to the surface in different situations, getting in my boat, if you will. I found myself not hearing from God, feeling he was distant. And a situation arose, and my discerning gift, which if I'm not careful and I'm not healthy, is judgy. That's a whole other message in itself, but we become these cynical Christians. And it came out in full force, and my mouth went in full volume to whoever was listening, and it was Michael. And he finally just said, hey, I need you to just go spend some time with Jesus and take a deep breath, because you're just talking to talk and it's not going anywhere. Well, in that moment, you can imagine how that went over. But how many of you are thankful for those moments of correction? Those moments where you have to take a step and say, was he right? Absolutely he was right. And the following days, God had to remove some ick in me and show me some things that I thought were defending God but were offending him. Psalm 139, 23 through 24 says, "Search me, O God. Know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life." You see, your pain can be valid, but how we respond is vital to who you're maturing into being. It's vital. Search me, oh God. I don't want to be swamped. I don't want to sink because of the stuff I'm allowing into my boat. So my question to you is, when these storms come in your life, what is getting in you? What are you allowing into your boat? Are the waves of offense crashing in? Are the waves of bitterness crashing over the sides? Is unforgiveness of yourself and others breaking the sides of your boat? Is judgment of yourself and others breaking in? The lies that you believe, the addiction, the insecurity, the depression, the anxiety, and the list goes on and on and on, and it's crashing in, and it's starting to saturate you. Maybe you're already swamped. What's getting in you? Verse 38, Jesus was sleeping at the back of the boat with his head on a cushion. The disciples woke him up shouting, "Teacher, don't you care that we are going to drown?" So what do we have here? Sleeping. Jesus is sleeping. Not only sleeping, he's sleeping on a nice little cushion. He's resting while the storm around him rages. He knew the storm was coming. He had said, "Let's cross," and then he gets a cushion and lays down. He knew the storm was coming. Water was coming in. Jesus is napping. And I want to nap like Jesus. Because there ain't no nap like a Sunday afternoon nap in our home. But really what we see here is the steady Jesus. He knew the joy ahead of seeing the storm pass. He knew he was steady because as the storm raged around him, he knew at some point it was going to be still. Many of us focus on the end of this passage, "Peace be still," or "Silence be still," whatever version you read. But I saw myself in these disciples. They're like, "Jesus, do you not see this storm?" Even though he led him right into it. "It's me. Hey, Jesus, don't you see the situation I'm in? Do you not see my kids? Do you not see my family situation? Do you not see my friends that are hurting? Do you not see that marriage failing? Do you not see our finances? What are you doing, Jesus? Hello? Where are you?" And I had these moments. Where are you? What are you doing? And he's just like, "Rachel, I'm still in your boat. You and the people that you love are going to face storms. It's inevitable. But I'm still in the boat. I knew the storm before it was a storm. And I need you not to get swamped right now with all the voices and the thoughts. And I need you to trust me. The joy ahead of you is bigger than this. It's bigger than this. Look at Mark 4:39 through 41 at the end. It says, "When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the winds and said to the waves, 'Silence, be still.' Suddenly the wind stopped and there was a great calm. Then he asked them, 'Why are you afraid? Do you have no faith? Do you still have no faith?' The disciples were absolutely terrified. 'Who is this man? Even the wind and waves obey him.'" You see, Jesus gets up. He commands the storm to stop. He came to them just as he came to me. "Why are you so afraid?" Jesus almost seems annoyed, which I would be if you woke me up from that good of a nap in a storm? No, nap like a storm nap. But then he calms the storm. And at the end, it says in verse 36, so they took Jesus in the boat and started out, leaving the crowds behind, although other boats followed. So when he said, let's cross, other boats had followed. Other boats had followed. Other boats watched this miracle. Other boats experienced the calming of the storm because Jesus was in their boat of who they were following. You see, people are watching how we handle the storm. They are looking for the joy that is set before us in the storm. They want to see this Jesus that we're hanging on to in the middle of our storm. And like I said, that doesn't mean we fake it. That doesn't mean we act like we're happy when we don't feel happy. It means that we trust. It means that we know the storm is raging around us, but we know that He is in our boat. Psalm 46, 4-5 says, God has a constantly flowing river whose sparkling streams bring joy and delight to His people. His river flows right through the city of God Most High into His holy dwelling place. God is in the midst of the city, secure and never shaken. At daybreak, His help will be seen with the appearing of the dawn. These verses were given to me a few years ago, and I've held so tightly to them in the past couple of years. Holding on to Him, not knowing at times what the heck is going on. My anxiety seemed to take over. I'm not sleeping. You see, I got up on this very weekend last year. I stood up here. I spoke on Nahum, the good God in the midst of pain. I talked to the fourth man in the fire in Daniel 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who refused to bow to idols. And they said, even if He doesn't save us, we will not bow. And they were thrown into the furnace anyway. And when they looked in there, there was 4. And they came out not smelling of smoke. I stood up here. I spoke about it. And I was claiming that even if He doesn't, I will not bow to the anxiety. I will not bow to the pain. I will not bow to the unknown. I'm going to come out not smelling of smoke. And this year, I'm up here speaking of joy, not smelling of smoke. That He's brought me through this year, steady and stronger and maturing and moving in the goodness of God. Is it still messy at times? Oh, yeah. But He's still in my boat. He's saying, peace, be still. I'm still in your boat. Just as He told Nehemiah, always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. Not Nehemiah, Philippians. I looked up the word rejoice. I'm going to say that verse again. Philippians 4:4. Always be full of joy in the Lord. Again, I say it, rejoice. I looked up the word rejoice and the meaning, as I love to look up meanings. Rejoice means literally a call to joy. It's a call to joy. When they sang rejoice this morning, it was calling you to the joy that is Jesus. And I've told you I saw Inside Out 2. I watched the first one on vacation, and now I've seen the second. And I don't even know if Disney knows what it was doing. And I'm not debating movies or Disney here, but I do believe that there are lessons in that movie. I was almost at the altar in the middle of the movie theater. I almost did an altar call right there and then for everybody. And I joked about it on my Instagram story. Priscilla Shirer, she said the same thing, that the Spirit of God was in that place. But the movies picked this younger O'Reilly, as I talked about, and in the second one, she's a teenager, so I'm relating to a lot of that, having teenagers in my home. And they added these characters, one being anxiety. They're going to put a picture of joy and anxiety. Joy's in yellow. And I don't want to give away too much, but as I thought on this story of Jesus in the storm, there was a moment where anxiety took over and all of the other emotions are standing back and watching her just go crazy with this control panel. And she's controlling what's going on. And at Joy, at one point, she says, anxiety, you don't get to decide who Riley is. And then Joy, in the movie, pushes through as Riley's having this panic attack and anxiety's taken over this control panel. And Joy pushes through and she holds anxiety's hand and she looks at her and she says, anxiety, let her go. Anxiety, let her go. In that moment, I about ran around the movie theater. I was praising the Lord. The moments where I haven't taken my thoughts captive, the moments where I feel out of control and the storm is raging around me. And I believe there's a lot of us that can relate to that. But I believe the joy that is Jesus, the steady, faithful in every season Jesus wants to come in and he wants to grab a hold of you and whatever's going on in your life. And he wants to say, anxiety, let her go. Depression, let him go. Sadness, let her go. Addiction, let her go. Toxic thinking, let them go. Generational curses, let them go. In the name of Jesus, he's calling everything that is holding on to us, every stronghold, and he's saying, let them go in my name. Philippians, always be full of joy in the Lord. Again, I say rejoice. So let us fix our eyes on what is true, what is honorable, what is right, what is pure, what is lovely, what is admirable. Think on these things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you have learned and received from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing. Then the God of peace will be with you. Philippians 4:8-9. So guess what this morning? We're going to rejoice. It's a call to joy. It's a call to joy. So whatever is holding on to you this morning, he's saying, let them go. Let them go. So I want us right now, whatever you are going through, whatever storm is raging around you, whatever mountaintop you're on, get on your feet because we are going to rejoice. Because there is joy in his presence. There is joy in his presence.